I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Orange Township Board of Zoning Appeals for Thursday, September 14th, 2023. First, I think we have a roll call, please.
Mr. Shipley.
Here.
Mr. Travis.
Here.
Ms. Sundar.
Here.
Ms. Ross. Ms. Neff.
All right, and we'll start with the swearing in of witnesses. Anyone who intends to testify, please raise your right hand and be sworn. You walked in it. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony that you shall give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state I do.
I do.
And when it's your turn to offer testimony, please state your full name, address, and affirm that you've been sworn in. And if you're going to offer any testimony, I ask you to step up to the microphone tonight so the reporter can get that. But it'll be your name, full name, address, and affirm that you've been sworn in, please. Thank you. And our first order of business this evening is variance application BA 23-17.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shipley. We will start off with the staff report for variance BA-23-17. The applicant is Ms. Megan O'Connor, who is present with us this evening. This is for property located at the northeast corner of US 23 and East Orange Road, having parcel ID number 318-234-04003001. They are seeking a total of 3 area variances from rezoning case 08-0610 Orange Corporate Park in an area zoned planned commercial and office district, or PC. These the two variances for setbacks are to allow for the proposed daycare to encroach 27 feet and 7 inches into the 70-foot front setback along Orange Road, and for the daycare to encroach 5 feet and 10 inches into the 30-foot perimeter setback. The applicant is also requesting 1 area variance from the Orange Township Zoning Resolution, Section 21.01E, to allow for a daycare to have fewer parking spaces than the required 1 space per employee plus 1 space per every 5 children. The applicant applied for the commercial permit on July 13th, 2023 of this year. Subject property, again, is located on the northeast corner of US 23 and Orange Road and is owned by Orange 23 Group, LLC. On the following page of the staff report, you can see the aerial of the property as well as the surrounding area. So the property is surrounded to the north, south, and east by planned commercial and office districts. And then to the west, on the other side of 23, is farm residential property that is currently undeveloped. The next page of the staff report goes through the variances one by one. So the first variance request is for the front setback. So the proposed daycare would encroach 27 feet and 7 inches into the 70 feet setback along East Orange Road. This is roughly a 39% variance request from rezoning case 08-0610, Orange Corporate Park. Andrew, if you can scroll down just a little bit, you can see the proposed site plan with the front setback on the left-hand side of that screen measured out. The second variance is for the perimeter setback, or essentially the side yard setback. You can see on that drawing that it is on the right side where Andrew's mouse is now. So the proposed daycare would encroach 5 feet and 10 inches into the 30 feet perimeter setback. This is roughly a 19% variance request from rezoning case 08-06110, Orange Corporate Park. On the following page is the final variance. This one is for the parking requirement. So the parking requirements for daycares as listed in the Orange Township Zoning Resolution in Section 21.01E is that daycares are required to have 1 space per employee plus 1 space for every 5 children. In their application, the applicant specified that the daycare would have a maximum of 28 employees and 232 students at maximum capacity. At 1 spot per employee plus 1 spot per every 5 children, the daycare is required to have 75 parking spaces. This calculation can be seen in Exhibit 2. So 75 parking spaces required. The site plan provided by the applicant shows 50 parking spaces, which is a shortage of 25 parking spaces. This is roughly a 33% variance request from rezoning case 08-06110, Orange Corporate Park. I will note that although it was not included in the materials, I do believe the applicant is also trying to work out some off-site parking arrangements, and I will let the applicant give any details or updates on that plan when the board has questions. That is all I have for now. The applicant is here if the board has questions.
Mr. Connor?
So my name is Megan O'Connor. I have been sworn in, and my company address is 1695 12 Mile Road, Berkeley, Michigan. So for our proposed site, we have actually worked through multiple iterations of this site plan, and what you're looking at is the best we could come up with that would allow us to meet our requirements as for play space, as well as maximize the most parking we could possibly provide, while allowing for 2 site entrances, which was a requirement from the fire marshal, so they could navigate the space. We obviously are encroaching on that front yard setback. I put that in quotes just because the front yard is actually what we are considering our rear yard, but it's that Orange Road frontage. And we are actually 70 feet removed from the internal road, which is actually where the front of our building is. So we are meeting the intent for the most part of that ordinance, but obviously the rear of the yard is what is facing Orange Road. As far as the parking goes, this tenant has determined that based on their experience, they are an international operator, so they've operated in Canada for many years. They do have multiple sites here in the U.S., and this would be their first build-to-suit building, so they're creating it themselves, or we're developing it on their behalf, but they are building it for themselves. As we were going through that process, they determined that between 35 and 40 spaces meets their needs. So the 75 requirement far outpaces what they anticipate ever needing, and then 50 is sort of a middle ground. So between what they think they need and then what the ordinance sort of calls for. The other thing I do want to point out is 232 students would be the absolute maximum. There would be no more allowed, but that doesn't mean that that's actually what would be there every day. 232 students would be every single possible spot is filled and every single student showed up on the same day. So that's not very realistic as to how these students operate. Many students come, a couple days a week. 28 students could possibly be in the after-school program, which would mean they are not being dropped off in the morning. They wouldn't factor into that. And then obviously most parents, not most parents, but some parents have multiple children. So it would be, one car picking up maybe 1 or 2 students at a time. We also wouldn't very regularly have 28 staff members there at a time. So as students go home, the staff can be reduced. So it all sort of filters out together. We believe 50 spaces does meet our need. As Robin alluded to, we have had conversations with nearby property owners regarding shared parking agreement. At this time, we don't have it in place. Reason being is we were able to get to 50 spaces. We had really been pursuing it when we were closer to 35 spaces. And now we think that with 50, we're more than satisfied. But we do have a connection. The seller of the property to us does own a parking lot just adjacent to the site. So if it ever were to become a concern, we could pursue that avenue. But at this time, we don't have that in place. Please let me know if you have any questions.
So I guess the starting question would be, you said that you worked every angle, kind of the way it was put out, something along those lines. So what's the alternative? If variance is not approved in any of the, what's the alternative?
If we can't get the variance for the setback, we don't anticipate the site working. There are licensure requirements for play space, which would be the obvious place to move the building and sort of adjust. But because it is a requirement for daycare to have a certain amount of play area, we can't really reduce that. The project does require having the capacity for about 230 students for it to be financially viable for the tenant. And the parking is really not up to us. So it does come down to, if it doesn't work on this property, we still really like Orange Township. We would perhaps try to find an alternative location if we could. But it is sort of the ideal location from the tenant's perspective.
I bring that up because it's a substantial encroachment. You know that. I'm trying to point that out. You know that. But it's a substantial encroachment at a busy corner of Orange Township.
Yeah, and if so, because that road that we would be entering off of is sort of a private road, our frontage is solely considered Orange Road. But if that was a public dedicated road, which we don't have the ability to make a public road, but if it was, then our frontage would be along that internal road, and we would be meeting those setback requirements. Obviously, that's not the case, but just from an experience perspective, it would feel like similar to other properties in the township of a 70-foot setback.
Right. And that's one of the reasons I said that was that you pointed out early on that that's the back of your building, so you looked at it a little different, but that's where it's measured from.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. And one more question. With regard to parking spots. So you settled in the middle on 50. So is 50 parking spots the most parking spots you could get out of that?
Yes. Yes.
Where on the diagram is the play area?
So it's along the side of the building and the back by Orange Road. I'm trying to orient myself. North is up, so it'd be the south and the west portions. It's sort of dotted. So the fence does come up to essentially what the property line will become.
Okay.
Yep.
The 19% variance for the perimeter, what we call that, the perimeter, it's actually based upon the 70-foot. But I guess my point is if that wasn't that far forward, then it wouldn't be that far forward. True? Or am I looking at that wrong?
I think not quite. It's a 30-foot setback, and it's kind of just a function of that oddly shaped parcel. Just that line does trigger that additional. If this parcel was a perfect rectangle, then that side yard perimeter setback would not really apply. But you are correct in saying that yes, it would still be part of the front yard setback, as it were.
Based on the length of the building? Or the width?
No,
It's just
X amount of feet from the right of way.
Do you have an alternative plan which doesn't require, 39%, like fewer parking lots? Do you have any plans?
We have an earlier version. We still did have setback variances in that they were less. but that I think got us to 38 parking spaces. So again, that was an amount that the tenant is comfortable with, but it does increase the variance for the parking reduction that we would be requesting from you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah. All right, also one question on
Sure.
any other businesses along over there? Approaching the setback. You're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, and that is with the caveat that because all of our commercial properties are in planned districts, there are different planned districts along Orange Road, so they may well have different setbacks. There are standard setbacks in our zoning resolution, which I can pull up, that are separate from the setbacks that are laid out in that development plan.
I guess the reason I asked that, I'm not trying to compare it. Not significantly trying to compare it, but developed Orange Road, along Orange Road, and so I guess the planned district piece would be the the difference with regards to that.
Yeah. So the short answer is that in planned commercial and office districts, Orange Road is a Class B road as defined by our zoning resolution, and that standard setback is 70 feet, which does match this setback in development plan.
And the post office is,
The businesses up in the businesses further up are in a planned district.
yeah,
Correct. And if you give me 30 seconds, I can measure the post office.
that's the only building I can picture right now.
Because it's the orange address, it falls in the orange road. That's that.
Yes and no. It's not really the address. It's just any distance from Orange Road. Any structure has to be 70 feet. That is the setback.
And again, not to prolong but the variance is substantial, so it's a discussion that we need to have. Kind of run that trap line, I guess.
For reference, the post office a little farther down Orange Road is 125 feet from the right of way.
Also, the post office is in a planned industrial district.
I figured, but
Most every business along that the road tracks to 23 is in a planned.
Plain industrial or plain commercial.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions? Anybody else have any other questions? I want to make a motion.
yeah. Move to deny case VA 2317 for property located parcel ID 318-234-04003-001. Lewis Center, Ohio, seeking an area variance for rezoning case 0806110 Orange Corporate Park to allow daycare to encroach 27 feet and 7 inches into a 70-foot front setback along Orange Road in the area zone plan and office district because of the reasons that are stated above. You want me to read those?
It's not necessary to read all of them now.
That's my motion.
Motion to deny the front setback variance made by Mr. Treves, seconded by Ms. Ross. Those voting, Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mr. Treves,
Yes.
Ms. Sundar,
Yes.
Ms. Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Neff.
No.
Motion carries with a 4-1 vote. Front setback variance is denied. We still have the other 2 variances.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
I move to approve based on the factors, based on the factors, I move to approve case VA 2317 for the property located parcel ID of 318-234-00003-001, Lewis Center, Ohio, seeking an area variance for rezoning case of 08-0610 Orange Corporate Park to allow for the daycare to encroach 5 feet 10 inches into a 30-foot perimeter setback in the area zone plan commercial and office district. That's the motion.
Second.
Motion to approve the variance for the perimeter setback made by Mr. Treves, seconded by Ms. Neff. Those voting, Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mr. Treves,
Yes.
Ms. Sundar,
Yes.
Ms. Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Neff.
Yes.
Motion carries. Perimeter setback variance is approved.
One second. And the last one is for V8, V8 2317. I would make a motion to deny the proposed seeking area variance from rezoning case 08-0610 Orange Corporate Park to allow for a daycare to have 50 parking spaces for the required 75 parking spaces in the area zone planned commercial and office district.
Second.
Motion to deny the variance request for reduction in parking spaces made by Mr. Shipley. Those voting, Mr. Shipley,
Yes.
Mr. Treves,
Yes.
Ms. Sundar,
Yes.
Ms. Ross,
Yes.
Ms. Neff.
No.
Motion carries 4-1. The parking variance is denied.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Ready when you are.
All right. Our next application is variance application VA 2318.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is variance case VA-23-18. The applicant is 3-pillar homes for property located at 5504 Maple Drive, Lewis Center, Ohio, having parcel ID number 318-210-20002-000. This property is zoned single-family plan residential district. They are seeking an area variance from rezoning case ZON-22-04 Evans Farm for a home that encroaches into the rear setback. The applicant is requesting an area variance from the aforementioned rezoning case to allow for a home to encroach 22 feet and 8 inches into the 35 feet rear yard setback in an area zoned single-family plan residential district. The applicant applied for a permit for a new home on July 18th of this year after being informed that the setbacks are oriented to the public road and not the private alley. The applicant applied for the variance. The property is surrounded on all four sides by single-family plan residential district in Evans Farm. Some of those lots are built with homes, and some of those residences are not yet built or completed. On the following page of the staff report, you can see the aerial view of this property, 5504 Maple Drive. All right, so this is a little bit of an odd case. So in terms of our review, the rezoning text specifies that front setbacks are measured from an internal public right-of-way. This property only has public right-of-way frontage on Maple Drive, establishing the front setback along this road. The rear and side setbacks are then established in accordance with the front setback. The orientation of these setbacks can be seen in Exhibit 2 on the following page. The rear setback for primary structures is 35 feet. The proposed home complies with all other setbacks. So again, the proposed home would encroach 22 feet and 8 inches into the 35 feet rear yard setback for primary structures. This is roughly a 65% variance request from rezoning case ZON-22-04. So I do mention that this is an odd case. Andrew, if you don't mind going back to the auditor's aerial real quick. So you can see the kind of north-south road there, which is Maple Drive. That is a public roadway. That little diagonal connector road between Maple Street and Linden Street to the south, that is a private right-of-way. It was built to public standards, but the ownership remains private. Because our zoning text states that that all lots shall have frontage on a public right-of-way, when reviewing this this zoning permit when it came in, we realized that we would consider the front setback to be along Maple Drive. However, the home is oriented along the private drive, so it will face the private drive. So essentially, this is almost a swapping of the rear yard setback and the side yard setback, if that makes sense. And Andrew, if you don't mind going to Exhibit 2, I think that makes it pretty clear as well. So this is how we consider the setbacks based on the language of the rezoning, that the front is along Maple Drive. However, the home will be oriented such that it will face the side yard setback, which is the private alley, and the rear yard setback, which is, in a way, the side yard setback, is what they are asking relief from.
Quick question on the
Sure.
private access. So who all get to use that? I mean, like, who all get the access to use the private?
It is technically a private street, but there are no blockades. There's no gates. Essentially, if you drove down it, you would not realize that it was private. It looks like a public street. Actually, Orange Township tends to plow snow there already, but the ownership remains private.
Are there other lots that will have the same issue?
I am not 100% sure on that. We anticipate no. And I think this was, for a brief history lesson, Evans Farm has had multiple amendments to their zoning since it was first zoned, 10 years ago or so. The not most recent, but one of those rezoning amendments was to essentially compress everything from about a 500-page document to a 50-page document. And that 500-page document included some terms which would allow this to happen without the need for a variance. When that was compressed, somehow that was lost, that language went away, and now in order to make these lots compliant with our zoning, a variance is required. And Mr. Dan Griffin is here representing the applicant in Evans Farm, if the board has questions for him.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes, Dan Griffin, 5672 Evans Farm Drive, Lewis Center, Ohio, 43035. I moved up here 11 years ago to do the Evans Farm project.
You have been sworn in, sir?
What?
You have been sworn in?
Yes, I did, actually. So it was sort of when Robin called and this happened, and the builder called me and said, "What the heck?" I think this is, again, a cleanup that made sense, and Robin and I talked about it. Rather than amend the zoning to meet the zoning that this actually meets, we thought a variance made more sense than amending the zoning. It meets every other requirement. Personally, I built the street to public standards. I didn't know it got platted as a private drive. And as you can see, the middle lot to get frontage on a public street actually owns that whole street. We use it, and we let, the trucks and the garbage trucks, everything pulls around. So as far as maintenance of it, we consider it a public street, but rather than go through the process of amending everything and then asking Orange Township to accept it as a public street to meet all the requirements that we anticipated anyway. So it meets everything else. It sort of surprised us. And so we're here to clean up, we hope, the last little cleanup from sections 1 and 2, because that's what I've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. Just cleaning up a long list of, they're still within the purview of what we wanted to do at Evans Farm and create. And they're going to meet all the front yard, 20 feet back or right behind the sidewalk. There'll be the row of hedges. So visually, landscaping, it's going to meet all the design requirements. So we were just made aware of this, and I think we felt this was the best way to clean it up and come to you for a variance.
Tell me about the drainage easement. That is this.
Yeah, there's drainage easements throughout Evans Farm that have to be required to allow water to pass through, surface water. There's actually probably a storm sewer that goes there and connects to the storm sewer on the that's throughout the community. We have a lot of lots that have drainage easements in the back of them, and then storm sewer pipe that's actually on the lots across the street on Linden. Same thing. There's one all the way down from Butternut to Linden. So
How close is that from the lot line, the drainage?
Well, it runs. How close is it to the lot? Which lot? I have
The 9004.
let me just see what you're. I have a drawing. It's easier for me. So how close
So
is
it's
it?
50 feet, isn't
It's a 20-foot sanitary easement, and it looks like it's 10 feet off the 9001. This
it?
Yeah. We always try to give a little, instead of putting them right on the property line, we always try to design so that way when people take it on the next lot, I can hear them. So.
Just because you're here. So what is
Sure.
going on here? Is it a
That's a
spot?
Yeah,
It's spot.
that's a part. Back Friday night, if anybody wants to come out, we're having a bonfire and s'mores for the kids. So, but yes, I think this is just a normal cleanup of language that we had in our zoning text that didn't meet the private driveway side of it. It meets everything else. So.
And the Architectural Review Board approval, that's the permit there, the copy of we have in there. So, as I understand it, they approved it all, only to find out that that setback didn't meet Orange Township's.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't. And I'm on the architectural approval.
Well, but that was my point with the Evans Farm Architectural Board said, yes, this is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
It's all approved through our.
Yeah. Yep.
So Robin, since you said this essentially cleans this up and swaps the setbacks to just be on the other road. Other than that, if you kind of look at it, if we change, if it's all changed, does this building then sit in a similar setback from the roads than the other houses in that area?
Yes, it will meet the other setbacks.
It actually meets them and, yeah.
Any other questions? Is there any public comment? Why are you here? I thought maybe they're here today. No other questions? I'll make a motion. And I'll say that 65% jumps out at me, so it always does. But with that said, I would make a motion based upon the presentation, based upon the architectural review input in the Evans Farm current setbacks, to approve variance request VA 2318 for rear yard setback. Property located at 5504 Maple Drive, Lewis Center. Seeking an area variance from rezoning case ZON 2204 Evans Farm to allow for a home to encroach 22 feet 8 inches into a 35-foot rear yard setback.
Motion to approve made by Mr. Shipley, seconded by Ms. Ross. Those voting, Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Ms. Sundar?
Yes.
Ms. Ross?
Yes.
Ms. Neff? Motion carries.
Thank
Variance
you
is
very
approved.
much. And also, while I've got everybody, it's nice to see everybody again and certainly meet some new people. October 29th, we are having our fall festival, and we really want the whole community, Orange Township and Delaware County, to be there. So you'll be getting an invite, and I'll send it through you and carry it on. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Don't go too far, Dan.
What is this? Oh, that's right. You separated.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Okay, it's
And our next application is a variance application VA 2319. Rob?
Yes, sir. All right. This is variance case VA-23-19. The applicant is 3 Pillar Homes for a property located at 2331 Linden Street, Lewis Center, Ohio. Having parcel ID number 318-210-200-30003000. This again is a single-family planned residential district. They are seeking an area variance from rezoning case ZON-22-04 Evans Farm to establish the front building setback along a private alley. So for a summary, the applicant is requesting an area variance from the aforementioned rezoning case to establish the front setback along a private alley in an area zoned single-family planned residential district. After discussions with zoning staff regarding the adjacent property, 5504 Maple Drive, it was determined that this lot would require a variance in order to build on. The subject property includes a lot, in quotation marks, as well as the private alley that the lot lies on. The lot has no public frontage and requires an area variance to establish a setback on the private alley to make it buildable for a home. No building plans for the home have yet been submitted to zoning staff at this time. The property is currently owned by Xenios Development, LLC. Again, this property is surrounded on all 4 sides by single-family planned residential district in Evans Farm. This is also the adjacent property to the previous case. So you can see there, it is a little, it's a bit of a funky lot, which is a technical zoning term, because the lot legally includes the private alley, which is marked as a private right-of-way. So there is a right-of-way easement along that alley. So our rezoning text specifies that front setbacks are measured, again, from an internal public right-of-way and not private. This property only has public frontage where the alley meets the public roads. In order to establish feasible setbacks, the lot requires an area variance to establish a front setback along the private alley easement. The proposed area variance would establish the front setback for the property along the private alley easement line rather than along a public road right-of-way. The side and rear setbacks would then be established in accordance with the proposed front setbacks. So once we have the front setback established, we can then determine the side and rear setbacks. For this lot, the front setback would be 10 feet, the side setbacks would be 6 feet, and the rear setback for the primary structure would be 35 feet. All of those are standard for Evans Farm. And on Exhibit 1, you can see if this variance were to be approved, those would be the setbacks for the property in question.
so again, same thing. Same setbacks. Everything else is met.
So this property owns the private drive?
Technically, yes.
Uh-huh.
How does that work for road maintenance? So when this needs repaved?
It is a good question. I mean, the easement would be on the property, which means that whoever owns that property, I'm assuming the easement has terms for maintenance that it's not only access along that private alley, but maintenance as well, that people are allowed to come in and maintain that road. And I am assuming that I have not seen the language of that easement, but that being a private drive, that it would be maintained by the Evans Farm HOA.
You're correct. So I'm a real estate lawyer too. So you're correct. That's how we're going to handle it. The HOA is actually going to take over maintenance of that because it's not fair to put it on a lot just because when we did this zoning and we built it to public standards again, this is the first time I saw it, but it's not fair to put that on one lot to maintain that. And the other lots have frontage on a public street or having 3 lots participate. So the HOA is taking over maintaining the street, taking care of any repairments. In other words, the developers.
Questions?
I'll make a motion.
Well, any public comment?
Okay. I make a motion to approve based on these factors. I move to approve case number VA-23-19 for property located at 2331 Linden Street, Lewis Center, Ohio, seeking an area variance from rezoning case /zone -22-04 Evan Farms to allow for the front building setback to be established from the private alley easement on the property in an area zone single family residential district.
I'll second.
Motion to approve the area variance made by Ms. Sundar, seconded by Mr. Shipley. Those voting, Mr. Shipley?
Yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Ms. Sundar?
Yes.
Ms. Ross? Ms. Knapp?
Thank you very
Motion
much.
carries.
Again,
Thank you. Have a good evening.
do we have another? No.
Not that I know of. Do you have
Thank
any
you
more?
guys? I appreciate it.
I believe we have,
What we have left are the approval of minutes, right?
and I am, yes. So I believe we sent out the July meeting minutes. I received the August minutes yesterday, and I apologize, I did not get a chance to send them out to you, so we can kick that to the next meeting.
Do you receive any inputs for the July minutes?
I have not received any corrections, no. They should have been on the email that I sent out with all the meeting materials. If they were not, then I apologize.
Yeah, I apologize. I
I
missed that they were in this.
Okay.
I thought they said they were coming, so
Got
I
it. Well,
didn't click on anything.
apologies for the miscommunication. If the board prefers to kick those back to the next meeting, we can do that as well.
Is that fine?
That is
Do you need
fine.
a motion for that, or we can just?
No.
Okay, perfect. So that means the next meeting will have July and August
And possibly September.
Right, September. I can ask, it's perfectly fine, it's a public meeting, but did you have something specific, or were you just stopping in to? Okay, nope, that's perfect. Anything else?
Lesson?
All right, meeting adjourned.